welcome to Coast Currents. In the studio today, we have the Executive Director of the Gualala Arts Center, David Susalla. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Though to his friend, he prefers to go by the name of Sus, correct?
Right, yeah, you got it. Well, Sus is a third-generation nickname from my father and my grandfather.
Okay.
And so I'm the third in a long line of Suses. So they're no longer with me, so I carry the name proud. So.
Excellent. So talking of earlier lives and earlier parts of life, tell us a little bit about your life before you moved to Mendocino County.
Excellent. I grew up in Detroit, and so I was born actually in the summer of love in 1967 in the middle of the Detroit riots. And so literally in July I was born, and they brought me home while the summer of love was going on and tanks were driving down Jefferson Avenue. So it was quite an experience on that day.
Well, your family survived the riots, I take it.
They survived the riots, I survived the riots, and came out of it, and a better man. And I grew up in a very diverse community. My parents would take me downtown Detroit to several jazz shows. My father was actually a jazz drummer. My mother actually taught art and cooking, and my grandmother was an art teacher, and my aunt was an art teacher. So I grew up around the arts. My first job was at the Punch and Judy movie theater, which is a block and a half away from my house, so I could walk down to the movie theater and see chamber music and jazz music and productions, and it was actually a movie house as well. And so, yeah.
So the apple has not fallen far from the tree. It seems your environment was very artistic.
It was very artistic, and the interesting thing was my education actually, I took every single business class I could take in high school. And so I actually had an accounting background in education. I got a lot of the arts in my personal life, and in high school was mostly the accounting and business, and I took so many classes that they ran out of them. So in my senior year they actually developed a program for a business and office education club, and I did a co-op job where I ran an accounting department actually at the Detroit, it was the, what was the name of that? It was basically a cab company that I did the books for during the day. And then after the cab company, I went to work for, this is where I learned my event planning. My second summer in college, I went to work for a company called the Rooster Tail in Detroit, Michigan. And they actually, it was the largest catering facility in the Midwest. And so we housed the boat races and did a lot of entertainment. It was a jazz club. On the weekends, we had a lot of the big names come there, and we could do very large events. There was 800-person sit-down dinners upstairs and 400 down home ever since.
Right. And how did you end up being the director of the Gualala Arts Center?
That's a little bit of a story as well. I'll try and make it brief here. How we actually found Mendocino County was I met my wife Harmony in the Bay Area, and while we were courting I read a book that was Bay Area Getaways, and it had a cabin at the Serenity Cabins. And so I created a little flip chart book for her, so go out of the driveway and hang a right and hang a left and head on Highway 101 north, and we wound up at this little cabin in Mendocino County and loved it, and we just fell in love with the place. And so we came up with a plan. We would come every vacation, we'd try and come up, and we'd rent different cabins, we'd go in on houses, and we had all of our friends up here. And so we came up with a 5 to 10 year plan. We knew we wanted to retire here, and we thought, geez, we may never retire. Let's see if we can get up there in the next 5 or 10 years. And fortune brought it on that we made it in about 4.5. So we felt very fortunate. We closed on a house 10 years this summer.
Excellent.
Actually. And so I commuted back and forth to the Bay Area. I was in a job. I was a controller for a security broker-dealer firm in the Bay Area. And I would leave here on Sunday morning, bright and early, in time for the market to open at 7. So I'd leave here about 4 in the morning on Sunday, and I'd put in 2 to 3 days there, real long days, 12-hour days, so I can get my time in. Then I'd come back home here on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, and then do that all over again. And there was an article in the ICO, the local paper, for operations manager for the Gualala Arts Center. And when we first moved into town, To backpedal a little bit, a friend of mine, Mason, helped me move up. We had this big moving truck, and on our way down the hill, we saw the sign for Gualala Art Center, and so we pulled in. We jumped out. There was a docent there, and it was on a Sunday, and we looked all around. And my friend Mason said, "Wow, you know, this place is amazing." And I said, "I know, this is just incredible." And I looked at the docent, and I said, "I don't have time now, but I'll be back." And I'm not sure what capacity, but this is a great place. So 3 or 4 months later, I answered an ad in the paper, went through several interviews with lots of different board of directors and committees. And Bob Hawker, the president at the time, really had the vision of me for this job. And so he met me in the city, would call me on the phone. He would talk to me about the different details of what the operations manager job would be. And they convinced me to take about a 75% pay cut to move up here. And well, actually, I was moving here, but to move up here full time and to be able not to have to commute.
Right.
So I was very fortunate, and I started. This will be my 10th year. I started January 1st of, I believe it was 2002.
Excellent.
Yeah. So and then to become the director, Carol Metcalf was the director at the time. And she had been the director for 18 years when she retired in 2004. And so she was a real mentor to the community and for the Art Center. And she's great. Carol and I got along famously. And she worked real hard. She was the director that actually saw the giving of the land to us from Gualala Redwoods, and building the building and making it all happen, and building the temple to the arts that we have right now.
Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about the history of the development of the Gualala Art Center?
We've had our 50th anniversary here this year. In 1961, Betty O'Neill and Kathy DeMaio, we just were honoring them at our Top Hat dinner in this year. They went down to Oakland for a art and garden show, and they came back with this idea and a vision of throwing a party and having this happen in the Gualala area. So they ended up having that at the community center in 1961, and they brought the redwood trees into the community center. They barked trees and brought the forest into the community center and had an art show and a garden show. And they did that for 2 years at the community center, and then it transferred around. It was up in Anchor Bay for a while, it went into the woods for a while, it was up at Bauer Park for a while, and this whole time they had this vision while they were going through all this, wouldn't it be great if we had a permanent home? And so they've been really working on that, concentrating on it. They actually became a full-fledged 501c3 nonprofit in 1965. So then they were able to actually take donations and so forth. And start building a building fund to have a permanent home. Well, they looked at several locations all around the community, taking over existing places, building new places, and the land that we ended up with was from a very generous donation from Gualala Redwoods. Ali Edmonds was the owner at the time and worked with several people on our committees to do that. But he had one stipulation. We actually give a tour a lot. And when we bring this up was that they said you must never borrow money to build, and you need to raise $250,000 to show that you're serious.
Oh.
Well, the $250,000 soon turned into $500,000 that we needed to raise because the project grew. And so we had to raise that amount of money until they would hand the deed over. And sure enough, the community did. They raised that amount of money. We got the deed, the whole town worked together. They held fundraisers and bake sales and just about everything you could imagine they did to try and raise the funds to do it. And so that's one of those things that we carry strong with us, that we will never borrow money to do any of our projects that we do. We will never have a mortgage or a loan. You get a lot more bang for your buck without having to pay interest. So that's one of the things that have kept us going in these times as well.
You, during your tenure, you have introduced quite a few innovative ways of operation. Could you share with our audience a few of the ones that you think have been successful for you as an organization?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I bring with me is that my diverse nature of art and my love for all of the arts. And so when I came on board as operations manager, I saw what was going on. There was so much happening at the Art Center. I thought there could even be more. There were a lot of segments to the community that were not being served here. And so when I took over as director in 2004, one of the things that I had said was that I would really want to be here for the entire community, and that we want to have all types of art forms. So we've added all kinds of programming. We put the call out of what we want to do. A lot of our local performers had mentioned that that you have this wonderful art center where you bring in all this outside talent, but we want a stage for the local artists. So we created a series called our Localized series, and that is where we have a stage for performance art for local musicians that want to come and do and share their performance with the art center, and we share a percentage of the profits. And so that way it's not a guaranteed minimum for us. The more people that come, the more money the performer can make, and then the art center keeps a portion for its overhead to work with our publicity and so forth, and the ticketing and all that. So that's one of the examples of trying to do as inclusive art as possible with the performers. And then also with all types of the genres of art too. Every time a group will spring up, they'll come up and ask, like when I first came on, it was the digital photography, it was just was starting to happen.
Right.
And so all these groups of photographers would come together, and at one point I think we were up to 5 different groups of photography that wanted to happen. So they all came in and started, and I said, you bet, we'll figure out a room, we'll make it happen, come on in. So they gather underneath one umbrella. The basket weavers came in. There was a group of people that started wanting to weave basketry. And that group has grown from a couple people, now it's up to 20 or 30 people who get together, and they have a whole guild now. And now they actually have booths at Art in the Redwoods and so forth, and sell their basketry. So whenever a group or art starts developing in the community, we try to embrace that. And it's the other way around too. If a group starts weighing down, like our fiber group at one point was weighed down, there's only a couple of people, and so it kind of went into hibernation for a little while. And then a group of weavers got back together. They started bringing more life into it. They started having the meetings, and this year we had, I think it was close to 20 entries of weaving in Art in the Redwoods. So we actually developed a whole other category now for them. So we really try to grow and expand and contract equally with the demands and the desires of the community.
Now the Gualala Arts Center does have a very strong volunteer support network.
Absolutely.
Developed.
Absolutely. The building was built by volunteers. It's still maintained with volunteers. Just Art in the Redwoods alone, we had over 300 volunteers help with that. And that's one of the lifebloods of the Art Center back since from 1961. Volunteers have been getting together to help each other out and work on that. And we take our payroll very seriously with volunteers, and that's
right.
It's making people feel good about what they're doing. The magic and the spirit of volunteerism is like none that I've ever seen before. They get together, they do things that you could never dream of. You start with this vision, and you get a group of people together, and watching them work tirelessly on something is just amazing to me of what they can produce and what they can do. And a true token of that is if you walk around the grounds of the Art Center and watch it unfold every Tuesday and Thursday, and just about every day of the week there's a volunteer around there doing something. And the one thing I always, I almost felt bad they were spending so much time there. And I said, Carol Metcalf, I said, Carol, I feel bad. There's all these volunteers. They're doing all these things here. And she said, well, Seuss, they wouldn't be here if they didn't want to be here. And you're helping them extend their lives.
So Zeus, 300 plus volunteers. Isn't that like herding cats?
It's better than herding cats. It's like herding artists. And we're very grateful for each and every one of them.
Excellent. Very proud of your reputation for being operating in the black, the Gualala Arts Center,
Absolutely.
and especially in most years, and especially in this challenging economic times. Can you share with us a little bit of the innovative ways that you try to remain solvent?
Yeah, fiscally prudent.
Physically prudent.
Yes. It's everything. There's no one magic bullet. There's no stone is left unturned. We try to be very watchful of our expenses. In these times, I'm very proud that we haven't had to lay off any staff right now. We haven't had any raises either for the last 3 years, but we haven't had to lay off.
May I ask how many staff you have?
We have 5 full-time staff and a couple of part-time staff, people that do things. So,
Great.
Yep, and we would not be where we are without our great staff that we have. I'm here in the studio, and they're working tirelessly, and they themselves, volunteers are very sexy and they do a lot there, but without the totem pole of the staff there to do the things that people don't want to do,
right.
and to work on the computers and the databases, and to work with all of our wonderful artists and all the committees that come in, it really takes dedication to do that, and special people. And so we have a great staff right now. And so one of the ways that we can have been able to stay fiscally sound is our patrons. I can't say enough for our patrons and what we've done. And we try to recognize our patrons in various ways. We've got a new donor grove that we've started for plaque recognition. We try and team up with businesses for sponsorships. We've just now started some name recognition in the building for in-kind donations as well. Developing those relationships with people we found is our magic key to all of this. And people will respond and support what they feel good about. If they don't feel good about something, they're not going to want to support it. So we try and create an environment that is useful to the community and honest and loving as possible, and putting it out there and listening to people and trying to respect people's wishes. There is no one magic bullet. When expenses are tough and money's down, we've been able to consistently cut our overhead each year by about 10%. Like I said, our staff wages have been frozen. We try and do new events. We've added a car show, an auto show. That's been extremely popular. I had no idea how popular that's going to be. And we've had it for, this is our third year now that we're doing it. We'll be doing it again. And with our productions, we get a lot of people involved with those as well. The more people involved, we found the more ticket sales are going to be. Trying to keep the artwork as diverse as possible. Have a lot of free events. Doesn't sound like that's fiscally in the black. Our car show, we have not charged for admission, but it brings hundreds of people there. With that said, we've added a top hat dinner the last few years as well. That's our largest fundraising dinner. It's $150 a plate. So just being diversified and including the entire community doesn't necessarily mean you can't have events that may be exclusive to one type of genre or one type of art show. Like by having a May show, which is a juried art show, high-end juried art show that has very high prize monies, to having the Art in the Redwoods, which is open to any member of Gualala Arts for a $10 fee per piece of art, and we give away thousands of dollars in prize monies so that very first artist can enter in Art in the Redwoods, in which we had this year. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of, is having a venue, spurring on artists, bringing people here. One of your guys on here said, I remember taking some life drawing classes down there and loved it, and that was Troy. And I said, we're still doing them, Troy, today, and on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock, we have life drawing classes. So we try and have as many opportunities as possible for people to get involved.
So community involvement, diversifying the
facilities. Yep. Art patrons are art angels. I cannot say enough for. They've been so generous to the Art Center, and we have a certain set of the community that has really responded. And community members, those $5 checks I get, those are some of my most heartfelt checks when we send out our donation letter at the end of the year. And an artist will give us $5, and they'll say, and write a hand note on there saying, Seuss, I know times are tough, but we're with you on this. So it's those types of things. To the $25,000 donation, all of those inclusive together. We were able to build an elevator this year and raise over $100,000. It was a little bit of a risk, but we needed to open up the Art Center for the entire community. Our third floor that we have at the Art Center doesn't have an elevator, it has a stairway. Okay. And this year, we were able to get people up to see our upper gallery for Art in the Redwoods that have never been there. And timing is everything, right? So there I was out in the parking lot making my rounds, and this gal pulled up in her car, and she was bringing her husband out of her wheelchair, and she was guiding him in. I said, fantastic news, we have an elevator this year. And so she was all excited, and I just so happened to be, so I was buzzing around. They were just going down the hall to get in the elevator, so I got to ride in the elevator with them up to the top, and then I saw them as they were leaving. And they just said, Seuss, thank you. We've been an artist here. We've been entering in Art in the Redwoods every year. We've been coming to the building. My husband has never been able to get to the upper gallery, and we did it this year. And she said, thanks to you and your team for doing everything. And so there's just another accomplishment that the team did that I'm just so proud to be involved in and to play a small role.
Good. So how can our audience get involved?
There's lots of ways to get involved. We have room for everybody over there. They can call the Art Center. at the main number, which is 884-1138. They can go to our website. That's a great way to go to our website, gualalaarts.org. Dave Jordan's our webmaster. He does a great job with that. We spend a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of energy on our website.
Now, the other thing you do is, if I'm correct, you rent the facility out for events,
yes,
like weddings.
Yep, exactly. That's another thing that we do. Again, in the big fundraising picture of the world out there, we are an art center. We're not a wedding center, but we do rent ourselves for weddings on occasion. And so we have the full facility for that. It is a 15,000 square foot art center. We have a full commercial grade kitchen. We can do sit-down dinners for up to 200. So that's another big part of our fundraising and how we're able to stay afloat. We do fundraisers for other community groups in the community, like Throptimus and the Rotary, and just about every service group in the community does an event at the Art Center, and we charge a rental fee for that, and all of that's online as well under our rentals tab.
Going back to installations and shows that the Gualala Art Center has put on in the past, give me a couple of shows that you've been involved in that have meant something special to you.
You bet. You know, the installations, and we have two formal galleries, the Elaine Jacob Gallery, which is our main foyer, which is the front entrance, and then we have the Burnett Gallery, which is its own dedicated space. And that changes over about once a month or so. So we see quite a few exhibits that run through. And you know, again, I like the diverse art shows, the better. You know, there's the Art Roads we just mentioned, the May show. We just had an exhibit come up. The Basket Maker show is always very popular now. And the Controversial Art Show we just had this fall. That was, last winter. It was a very interesting show for installations. And you know, so basically the committee gets together once a year. We have an exhibit committee, and they review applications. And we keep it very loose, very informal. Application project, so that anyone, like if you had an idea for an art show that you wanted to manifest at the Art Center and share either your personal work or a group of artists, you could put together a proposal and then submit it. And every year in the spring, in April, we get together, we review those proposals, and then we actually empower the curators to install and hang the shows. So it's this educational element that people get to. We have professional hangers. We actually have a full detailed list on our website as well that we've developed from doing Art in the Roads for 50 years. We've gathered all this stuff on how to exhibit with the 60-inch line and all the measurements and all that stuff, and how to bring in a teaser in the corner of the room. But one of the things that I love is that we actually empower our curators to actually come in and be in charge of the gallery. So we don't have, you know, a full set. We have recommendations, but we don't have policies per se. And we're not there to censor the art. So it's one of the things I'm really proud of, that we've been able to hang a lot of different types of art, including art that was maybe, well, actually a piece that actually didn't make it in, was in the Smithsonian. It was a performance piece and a film, and they actually pulled it from the Smithsonian due to some controversial some controversial stuff in there. And so one of our curators for that exhibit found out about this, sent me an email and said, "Oh, Seuss, you know, we got to check this out. And what do you think? Do you think we can get it?" And I said, well, "Give it a try. You know, see if you can get it. You bet. You know, we have a controversial art show here." And so that nails it as far as I'm concerned. If you can try and get a hold of it, make it happen. Well, it turns out we were able to get it. We were able to get the piece, and it actually we showed it on a TV in the gallery. Of that work, and most people that saw it didn't get the controversy in it and why it was pulled, but there's all types of reasons for all types of political decisions. And there was also some photography in there as well that was on display. That this photographer came in and she said, "Now, are you sure? You know, you're going to let me hang this?" And we said, "Oh, sure, yeah, you know." And Doric worked with them and all that. And she said, "No, you're sure? Because I've had this work in, and it's been a jury show, and I've showed them the images, and I showed up, they wouldn't allow it in." And we said, no, you know, we can do this. And so she brought it in. She was just thrilled that we were able to have her display and honor the art. And that's one of the things with the Art Center is, you know, and with me personally, is the art always has to come first. You know, it's about the art and respecting the art and the artist, and that diversity. Who am I or any other committee or group to say what is art and to try and define that? You know, that's what we hire judges and jurors for, and we'll occasionally do that. But as far as for the full gallery and the full, you know, year, we want to have as an expansive, as far as I'm concerned, the committee's concerned, have an expansive collection as possible.
Now, the Art Center itself is architecturally impressive, plus the grounds it sits on.
Absolutely.
So the art is not limited to the building. I know that you have wonderful sculptures throughout the...
Absolutely, yeah, we have a great revolving sculpture garden outside. We have a lot of wonderful pieces out there. We're also actively seeking pieces that revolve through that as well. Yeah, we have about 11 acres of land that was donated to us from Gualala Redwoods.
Right.
And we're constantly developing that. We have a trail system that goes through. We have an easy access trail that's about 1/10 of a mile. We have a forest loop trail that's about 1/2 a mile, and a river loop trail that's about 1 mile. Now, if you ask our hikers, I think they say that that's a little ambitious,
right.
But we still have yet to get somebody with a little GPS thing and actually measure it. But so we have several different trails that go through. And the work of the Art Center, Paul Steiskal, our building designer, designed it so that it would look like a kind of a log flume from the old log mill site. So that's where you get that long kind of look on the main auditorium that goes with that. So yeah, it is. We feel very, very fortunate for what we have. But right now, we've built the facility, and so our next big thing that we're working on is sustaining that. And so we have a big fund campaign going on now to maintain the building. And so we've been in the space now about 13 years. It's been open, 13, 14 years, since '98. And so we're addressing those long-range maintenance problems. So we're looking for funders and donors. We have a building reserve fund that we're starting to tap into for the first time this year to address some issues. So you bet we're looking into that long-range planning of trying to anticipate our maintenance needs and being able to deal with some that have popped up, like right now, with some of our roofing issues that we've had. So yeah, there's always something going on around there. It's always challenges to work with, but if we're open and honest about that and address them for what we are, and have a good attitude about it, it's like, oh geez, you know, we found this issue on the roof, and my response was, great, I'm glad we found it now, rather than 5 years from now, you know. And it's kind of like, well, what do you mean great? It's like, well, great, we're going to deal with it, we're going to figure it out, and we're going to make it happen, and we're going to get the funds, and we're going to get the right roofing caps that we need that should have been on there in the first place, and address it.
So one of the fundraising endeavors that the Gualala Art Center started in its infancy was the Dolphin Gallery, and that's still in existence today. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely, yeah. The Dolphin Gallery and Gift Shop that we have is downtown in the Sundstrom Mall. It's open, I believe, 363 days a year. I think they're closed 2 days out of the year. Fully staffed by volunteers. All of the art that's in there is a couple of hundred artists. They're all members of the Art Center. We have a great commission rate on that. It's a 65-35 commission rate. So it works out very well for the artists and works out great for the Art Center. And so yeah, it's a great retail outlet for our membership that we have there.
Great.
And so, yep, you can, to get involved with that, just stop into the Dolphin Gallery. And if you're an artist that would like to be represented there, just talk to the manager that's on duty.
Excellent.
You bet. Yeah,
Thank you.
Very proud of the Dolphin Gallery Gift Shop.
Well, continued congratulations to you for another 50 years and for the 50 that you've already been through.
Yeah.
Audience, please, I encourage you to go and visit the Gualala Art Center to get involved. Check out the website. If you'd like a little bit more further history, there is an article in the current edition of the Mendocino Traveler's Guide that will give you some wonderful background. And again, Zeus, thank you for joining us on Currents.
Thanks, Alan. I'm honored and privileged, and thank you, everyone. And thanks to everyone out there. We'll see you over at the Art Center, and please look us up.
We will.
Great. Thank you.
Bye-bye.